Hey, welcome back, guys. Welcome back, guys, to another video. I wanted to give a subscriber shout out to @itsbenji. He made a very I don't know, intriguing statement, and I love statements that make me think, right? And this is the video that I made addressing Uncle Neely, the comments that he made on DNVR Sports when he was being interviewed by one of the guys, and he was giving his reasons as to why these players were hitting the transfer portal, talking about how these guys did not want to compete. And this is what @itsbenji says. He says the implication they didn't want to compete was total disrespect to the relationship he presumably built with the running backs. And it's true. It's total disrespect, because these guys are athletes. Competition is by default part of their, it's etched in their football DNA. It's etched in the fiber of their being. They've always competed. Remember, I told you guys, remember the first year, they had a lot of good running backs, and the running backs didn't care. They said, look, I don't care. We're all good. We're all going to be explosive. We all have something to give. If it's a game where, you know, we have a team that's real stout up front, we have big running backs to run through. If we're playing against a defense that's a little bit thin on the defensive line, then we have fast twitch fiber like athletes like Dylan Edwards who can hit the hole and, you know, get a home run 40-60 yards easily. So I don't know where this idea that these guys did not want to compete comes from. And I also wanted to give another subscriber shout out to Super Unknown, to @SuperUnknown. And this is what he says. He says, so people who were in the portal and are now with Colorado University left their school because they didn't want to compete. So he's sort of like being, he's inserted a little bit of tongue in cheek in the comments that he's making. He's essentially saying, okay, if the players, according to Uncle Neely, if the players at Colorado University, the Colorado Buffaloes, if they left their team because they did not want to compete, then you also have to apply that same metric to the players who transferred from their universities to come to your school. Did they leave because they did not want to compete either? So you see how that's a contradictory analysis to make. It's a contradiction in and of itself. It's self-defeating. It attacks its own self. So the statements that Uncle Neely is making, he's indicting himself of a person that's not being genuine in his response. The genuineness in a response is supposed to say, look, I don't know why these players are leaving, but there must be a reason why they left, and I don't know. That's the best answer to give. I don't expect Uncle Neely to throw the program of Coach Prime under the bus, because he works for Coach Prime. He works for Colorado University. So it wouldn't be in his best interest to throw the program underneath the bus while he's still being employed by the program. Okay, you don't bite the hand that feeds you. You have to be smart, but you can be neutral. You can give a politically correct response and just say, hey, you know what? I don't know why those guys left. I wish them the best. We'll never know. We'll have to just sit down with them and talk with them and ask them why. But to just insinuate and imply they did not want to compete, that's not it. All right, I know why they left. Well, I have a reason. This is my speculation why they left. They do not like the direction that Coach Prime is taking the program in. And smart young men are jumping ship. Because young men are very impressionable. If you can get people to follow you with your hype and with your rhetoric and with your talk, with your bravado, with your whole aura, because you know Coach Prime has that. He has that for the cameras. I don't know how he is off camera. A lot of the things that we know of Coach Prime are the things that we see on camera. But from the things that people are saying about him that are not on camera are quite different. Remember the interview that those two ex-Colorado football players gave on Jason Whitlock's show, Fearless? You know, and then Uncle Neely is like, oh, Coach Prime has an open door policy. He's always in the weight room working out with the guy. When the cameras are on, who knows what he's doing when the cameras are off? I don't know. But there's a reason why those players left. And competition is the last thing they left for. You think that these players, when they go to their new school, when they hit the portal and land at their new university or whatever university that they choose to attend, you think that they're not going to be competing there either? Do you think that they're transferring not to compete? Athletics is competition by design, Uncle Neely. You should know that. So I don't believe that at all. So at its Benji, you make very, very good points. Like that's disrespectful to insinuate that. That's very disrespectful. It's not about competition. Do we think that Cormani left because he didn't want to compete? He just wants to go to a team where he's just going to just start? No. You're going to compete everywhere you go. Players are smart. They are cerebral enough to say to themselves, I want to go to a different environment. I want to go to a different program that I can develop. And that's what Cormani said. He said why he wanted to go. But we don't want to take his words for it, though. He doesn't want to compete. I'm sure if Dylan says, look, I want to go to a different program, I want to go somewhere else and take my talents elsewhere, can't we just leave it at that? Do we have to dig deeper and say it has to be because he doesn't want to compete? So when you start saying things like that, Uncle Neely, you are essentially being a Coach Prime apologist. You are pulling out anything that you can to make it seem that there's nothing wrong with the things that Coach Prime does. And there's nothing wrong with the way, because we all have room for improvement. And so, and when you have room for improvement and people call that out, it doesn't mean that people are haters. It just means that people see some gaps, they see some points in areas that you can improve upon, and they're just highlighting those areas. Just like me, people have left comments on my page telling me, hey, you need to do this more. It doesn't mean that I'm going to just change everything I'm doing based upon what people are saying, but I'm at least going to consider it. I'm not going to just call people haters. Like that, I hate that term. I swear, every time I make a video, there's always one or two comments, you're a hater. You're hating on black people. You're supposed to be looking out for your own. I'm like, no, I don't. Like when something is when I see BS, I'm gonna call it out. I don't care what your color is, and especially if you're melanated, especially if you're quote unquote black, I'm really gonna call it out. I'm more critical of my own than I am of other races. I don't care about what other white coaches are doing. Somebody left a comment saying, you don't talk about other white coaches. I'm not gonna talk about other white coaches. I don't care about them. I don't care what they do. I want us to shine and look good. That's the reason why I was following Colorado. I wanted Coach Prime to go there and dominate. I wanted him to go there and take the power away from those white coaches. I want all the power to be with him. I want him to dominate the way Saban dominated. That's why I'm very critical. I can be for somebody and still be critical. I can love my kids and still be very critical. Doesn't mean I hate my kids. It's because I love my kids, I'm going to be very critical of their actions. Because I like Coach Prime and I want him to succeed, that I'm going to be very critical. I'm going to call that stuff out. I almost cursed. Sorry. I'm going to call that stuff out. I'm going to call it out. Don't put those kids underneath the bus. Oh, they don't want to compete. And that's the problem. That's one of the problems that I see at Colorado. Players get thrown underneath the bus easily. For the world to see, that they are made a spectacle. People are watching, and then they'll get on camera in front of a microphone and just throw players underneath the bus. Get trampled, man. You don't do that. Uncle Neely just said, hey, look, man, I wish them the best. I don't know why they left. They did have a good situation here, but I guess that they're looking for a better place. Yeah. Players leave because they're looking for a better place. And yeah, I've heard the sayings, well, the grass is not always greener, but sometimes the grass is greener. Sometimes the grass is greener. So people forget that. People say the grass is not always green. Well, it's not always. But, sometimes it's not green, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. All right? The grass is not always greener. On the other side of the fence, it's not always greener. Yeah, it's not always green, but sometimes it is. You got to play your percentages. And you trying to tell me that Coach Prime is running the best football program in the country? Get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. Yeah, those players left because they wanted to leave, man. They have their own reasons. Of course, they're not going to say the truth totally. I think Cormani was the most honest. He wanted to go to a program that they could develop him. He didn't feel like he was being developed. He wanted to be good. This idea that he was missing practice every day and not missing practice, but being late to meetings, being late to practice. Come on, man. Come on. And then Uncle Neely has the nerve to undress and try to expose Cormani. Oh, Coach promised that you're going to start if you do these things. And he wouldn't check the boxes. Okay. You should be happy that a player like that left. You shouldn't even make a comment. You should just say, I'm happy for him. I wish him the best. That lets me know that there's a little bit of animosity that's there. And these coaches are upset that these players are leaving because they know that these players are talented and these players could have been an asset to the team. But they're upset. But the only way they could get back at the players is to kind of, put their names in the mud a little bit to say that they did not want to compete. That's the worst thing you could tell an athlete. That's the worst thing you could tell an athlete. You don't want to compete. They're looking at you like, what? I compete for a living. I'm competing against the opposition. I'm competing against the next man in practice. I'm competing in the classroom academically to make sure that I make the best grades that I can. Competition is all around us in different ways, of course, but competition is a part of life that cannot be, optionally taken out. It's a main staple of human existence. Competition is built into the experience of life. So this idea that these guys don't want to compete. So that was a good comeback at Super Unknown. You were very, very clever in the way you make that statement. So if your players at Colorado left because they did not want to compete, can we say the same thing for them, for the other ones that left their schools to come to Colorado? So now you have the same thing going on. Now you have the same cycle. So now it's like recycling shit. Excuse my language. The players who left you did not want to compete, but then the players that left their schools did not want to compete. They're coming to your school not wanting to compete. So you're back at square one, Uncle Neely. The players that left who did not want to compete left, right? So you got new guys who left their schools to hit the portal to come to Colorado University, right? So is it safe to say, based upon your argument, following your logic, Uncle Neely, that the players who left their school did not want to compete either? So aren't you getting the same kind of players with the same mentality and mindset? So you see how that's a defeating argument? It defeats itself. Doesn't make any damn sense. And I'm glad you brought that up at Super Unknown. All right, thank you guys, man, for leaving those comments. These are comments that excite me, that makes me think. It takes us beyond the you're just a hater. People are just thinking, man. Nobody hates. Don't hate. I just want things to be done right. All right, I want things to be done right, and I want to see him dominate. But there's certain things that you have to do to dominate, and the things that he is doing, Coach Prime is doing, the direction that he's taking the team in the direction that he's taking the program in, to me, is not going to be conducive to success. It won't be. It will not be. I mean, if you just look at last year, look at the way they lost the game. It's not even that they lost. Forget the record. Just look at the way they played. Look at the imbalance of offense. Look at the imbalance and the lack of competency in the offensive scheme. And don't give me the nonsense about they didn't have an offensive line. We'll see this year. Since most of you guys' excuse was that they didn't have an O-line, so they had to throw the ball. If you don't have an O-line to pass block, why the hell do you keep throwing the ball? If the O-line was that horrible, why not be balanced? Because, I mean, you're not good. Okay, according to their logic, the people who blamed everything on the offensive line, according to their argument, is that the offensive line was horrible, right? So, okay, let's take your word for it. Let's say the offensive line was horrible. Okay, so if the offensive line is that horrible, that means that they can't pass block or run block. So if that's the case, why not just run the ball 50% of the time and throw the ball 50% of the time and be balanced? Because your imbalance of throwing the ball most of the time, being a pass-heavy team, did not lend its hands to success. You were not successful at all. You weren't. So I'd rather you not be successful being balanced to being competent than being incompetent. You keep trying to run through a damn brick wall, and obviously the brick wall's not giving. You keep throwing, 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 you keep throwing. Because I got to get my son to shine. I got to show that my son is a Heisman Trophy candidate. And then if he doesn't do well, I can always point to the offensive line and not giving him enough time to throw the ball. The reason why your son was sacked a lot, Coach Prime, is because your offense became too damn predictable. Smart coaches know how to use their personnel and manipulate the defense to make the defense be on their heels a little bit. Yeah, I understand your offensive line wasn't the greatest. So you're trying to tell me that every college team has a great offensive line? No. Some teams don't have the luxury of having a top 5 offensive line. You have to work with what you have. But when you're trying to push an agenda and you're playing that daddy ball because you want your son to just shine all the time, then you're going to force the issue. And when you force the issue, the defense starts to know, okay, this is what they want to do. And then when your son is flashing his watch doing the Shador, that puts a bigger target on his back because players really want to get at him. And so when players hit him, they put a little bit more extra sauce on it. You find your son being hurt, having back spasms and back pains, and allegedly fracturing his back, having to take painkiller injections during games, which is absurd to me. During games, and then you're putting your son back out there when games are out of reach. I mean, I could go on and on. I've talked about these things. That's last year. We're going into a new year, new football season, so I'm going to leave those things alone. But all I want to say is that the way that Coach Prime is running the program, as I've seen it thus far, if he doesn't make any changes, it will not lead to success. And I really believe that after Travis Hunter and Shador and Shallow leave, he's gone. He's gone. This is just an experiment. We're going to look back at this and talk about it in years to come. And then, of course, the apologists are going to say it was about racism. They didn't give him a chance. People were hating on him. No, people are not hating on him. Well, I'm not hating on him. I can't speak for everybody else. You know, I fall into the category of a person that's a critical thinker, but I want him to succeed. But in my passion of wanting him to succeed, it doesn't mean that I'm going to throw out my logic or throw out my brain and just be blinded by emotion and just go full force and just root for everything that he does. If he does something that's stupid, I'm going to call it out. If he does things that are dumb, that don't make sense, I'm going to call it out. Okay? Not just trying to give an excuse for everything that he does. Because when people do that, you're making it seem as if Coach Prime is you and you're Coach Prime. Don't be so defensive. When people say things about Coach Prime, don't get too defensive. Just think about what people are saying first before you react, because people tend to put themselves in Coach Prime's position as if they're living Coach Prime's life and Coach Prime is them. Coach Prime doesn't even know you and you're defending him. He doesn't know you. What he eats doesn't make you poop. You know, what he does doesn't affect you. So why not consider opposing views and opposing narratives that go against what you believe about Coach Prime, and consider it. Take a deep breath, remove your emotion out of it, and ask yourself, okay, where is this coming from? And dialogue. But just to throw the term out there, you're a hater, that's for people who they lack the vocab, they lack they lack vocal expression or vocal articulation to make a point. I don't know. Because I keep hearing that damn word everywhere. You can't say anything about anybody nowadays. We've become so soft as a society, man. If you say one thing that goes against anybody, you're a hater. Hater? How can I hate? Hate you for what? Coach Prime doesn't pay my bills. Like, why would I hate him? I don't hate him. I just don't like you. I just don't like an adult purposely throwing young men underneath the bus, saying that these young men did not want to compete. That's why they left. How insulting. And then people who are blind supporters of Coach Prime who can't think for themselves, like, yeah, they didn't want to compete. That's all right. They can go. We're going to get better players. Okay, so that means that the players that you're getting from other universities did not want to compete either. So now you have the same problem. You have the same problem of guys on the team that don't want to compete. So where does the sense? Inject some sense into it. Make that make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. And when I call that out, I'm a hater. Get out of here, guys. Think. Yeah, I'm going to watch the football games. I know some of you guys are saying, well, yeah, you have hate for Coach Prime, don't follow him. No, I'm going to follow him. I have a right to follow who the hell I want to follow. I'm going to watch them. And when I see great things happening, I'm going to call it out. I'll be the first to call it out if I see it. If I see bad things happening, I'll also be the first to call it out. That's just the way my mind operates. And I think we owe ourselves that much to see things and be critical. Because if you're critical to things that you see externally outside of you, you're going to be critical of yourself and shape yourself to be a better person. But if you're always moving by emotions, you're always going to give excuses to why you don't succeed in life or why you don't do what you want to do. Because the same way you protect other people without thinking critically is the same way you're going to protect yourself. When you become a person, or when you put yourself in a position where you're not giving your best. Quick to give excuses. Oh, it's not this. Oh, you don't really know me. Oh, I got a good heart. Show me. I can show you better than I can tell you. Show me. You're about winning, Coach Prime? Show me. Are you about winning, or are you about other things? And if I said it before, I've said it again, I'll say it again. He's about other things. The proof is in the damn pudding. if players leaving is not enough for you guys to see that, then I don't know. And these are key players. These aren't like guys who weren't getting, well, I guess some of them weren't getting playing time, but these are guys that were expected to, to have a big part in the team's success. And they're leaving. All right? So again, subscriber shout out, man. Thank you, It's Benji, for your comment. Thank you at Super Unknown for your comment. And thank you the other people on here that make comments. And even the people who call me haters, that's fine. You could call me that. But if you say I'm a hater, then explain why. Just give me a reason why. And contend with the points that I'm making. Okay? Contend. Forget my skin color. Forget what race that I am. Just talk about the points that I'm making. And then I'll be the first one too. If you look at some of my comments when I respond to people, I thank them sometimes. I'm like, you know what? I didn't see that way. Oh, thank you. Now you're making me think a little bit. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with me, but if you disagree with me, point out what you don't agree with. My comments are not made off of emotion, folks. I'm going off of what I see, and I'm inserting critical thinking. And just because I say critical thinking doesn't mean that my critical thought is always accurate. Doesn't mean that, but I'm thinking. And someone else is a critical thinker and they come with an opposing thought that's opposed to what I said, it forces me to think even deeper. So you see how iron sharpens iron? When we're going back and forth and we're using critical thought to dissect or analyze a particular situation, it forces the human mind to evolve and get better and get better and get better and improve. But when you just hurl out insults, it impedes that progress. That process is halted. It's stopped. And that's what I don't like. It's okay to disagree. Talk about the points. And it pushes the envelope a little bit, and it forces us to think outside the box, to be more creative with our thought process, and it allows us to be more cerebral, more well-rounded. That's why I can be for Coach Prime and be critical. That's why I can be for somebody and be critical. Constructive criticism, and I can give praise as well when it's earned. That's the way we should be living. Not, if I like somebody and I support them, I'm never going to try. I don't want to see anything wrong that they do. And if I hear anything wrong from anybody else, they're just hating. Because how can you hate on a guy that I like? You're being emotional. You guys are acting like Coach Prime is your girlfriend, your boyfriend. I heard somebody use the term prime sexuals. Like, relax. He doesn't care. Coach Prime doesn't care about you. He doesn't know you. You can be critical, guys. Doesn't mean you're hating. Now, hating is if you're saying hateful things. If you're calling somebody names and you're cursing them out and you're hurling out insults, you're being vulgar. Okay, things like that, I can understand why you can come to the conclusion that somebody's being hateful. But for somebody to have their own critical thought in a mode of constructive criticism, to just call them a hater, that's cheap. That's cheap. That's cheap stuff, man. Let's not do that. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Leave a comment. Tell me what you guys think. All right. Bye.